There is a quiet power that most people overlook. It doesn't shout. It doesn't chase. It doesn't beg to be seen. It simply exists strong, grounded, and unshaken. That power is confidence paired with detachment. Most people think confidence means being bold, loud, or fearless. But real confidence is much deeper than that. It's the calm understanding that you are enough, regardless of what happens next. And here's where many people go wrong. They become confident but attached. Attached to outcomes. Attached to approval. Attached to being liked. The moment you become attached, your confidence starts to crack. Because now, you're not free anymore. You start overthinking every word. You start analyzing every reaction. You start adjusting yourself just to fit someone else's response. And without realizing it, you've handed your power away. But when you are confident and detached, everything changes. You walk into a room not to impress but to express. You speak not to be accepted but to be authentic. You show interest, but you don't lose yourself in the process. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't cling. There's a difference. Caring is healthy. Clinging is fear. Fear of losing. Fear of rejection. Fear of not being enough. But when you let go of that fear, you become magnetic. Because now, your energy is clean. It's not desperate. It's not heavy. It's free. And people can feel that. Think about it. Who feels more attractive? The person who is trying too hard to be liked? Or the person who is comfortable being themselves no matter what? The answer is always the same. Because confidence says, I know my value. And detachment says, I don't need you to confirm it. That combination is unstoppable. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop forcing and start flowing. And here's the truth most people avoid. Not everyone will like you. Not everyone will choose you. And that's not a problem, because your worth was never decided by someone else's opinion. Rejection is not a sign that you're not enough. It's a sign that something doesn't align. And alignment matters more than approval. When you understand this, you stop taking things personally. You stop shrinking yourself. You stop performing. And you start living confident, calm, clear. You begin to realize your job is not to control outcomes. Your job is to show up as your best self and let life respond. Because the right people, they won't need convincing. They won't need chasing. They'll meet your energy with the same clarity and respect. And if they don't, you move on without losing yourself. That's detachment. That's power. So the next time you step into any situation, whether it's a conversation, a relationship, or an opportunity, remember this. Be confident enough to show who you are, and detached enough to let go of what isn't meant for you. Because when you master that balance, you don't just change how others see you, you change how you see yourself. Confidence is often misunderstood as something loud, visible, and dependent on how others react to us. Many people grow up believing that confidence is built through praise, recognition, and approval. When someone claps for you, when they agree with you, when they validate your choices, you feel strong. But the moment that validation disappears, so does your confidence. This creates a fragile foundation, one that depends entirely on external circumstances, rather than something stable within you. Real confidence doesn't work like that. It isn't something that rises and falls based on opinions, compliments, or social approval. It comes from a much deeper place of self-worth. Self-worth is the quiet belief that you are valuable, capable, and deserving, regardless of what anyone else thinks or says. It doesn't need constant reinforcement because it is rooted in understanding rather than reaction. When your confidence depends on validation, you start to live for others instead of yourself. You begin to measure your decisions based on how they will be perceived rather than whether they align with who you are. You hesitate before speaking, wondering if your words will be accepted. You adjust your personality depending on the environment, slowly losing touch with your true self. Over time, this creates a disconnect, a gap between who you are and who you think you need to be to gain approval. This is where insecurity quietly grows, not because you lack ability or value, but because you have outsourced your sense of worth to people who were never meant to define it. And the truth is, no amount of external validation will ever feel like enough if you don't already believe in your own value. You can receive compliments every day and still feel uncertain. You can achieve success and still feel like an imposter, because validation can only amplify what already exists inside it, cannot create it. Self-worth, on the other hand, changes everything. When you truly understand your value, your behavior shifts naturally. You stop chasing approval because you no longer need it to feel secure. You speak more freely, not because you are trying to impress, but because you are comfortable expressing yourself. You make decisions based on your principles, rather than fear of judgment. And most importantly, you become consistent. You are the same person regardless of who is watching or how they respond. This kind of confidence is quiet but powerful. It doesn't demand attention, yet it commands respect. People can sense it in the way you carry yourself, in the way you communicate, and in the way you handle both praise and criticism. Because when your confidence comes from self-worth, neither compliments nor rejection have the power to define you. They become information, not identity. Developing this internal confidence requires a shift in perspective. It means learning to evaluate yourself based on your effort, your growth, and your intentions, rather than outcomes or opinions. It means recognizing that failure does not reduce your value, and success does not increase it. Your worth is constant. It is not something to be earned or negotiated. It also requires honesty. You have to be willing to face your flaws without letting them define you. Self-worth is not about believing you are perfect. It is about accepting that you are a work in progress and still worthy of respect. This acceptance removes the pressure to prove yourself constantly. Instead of performing for validation, you focus on improving for yourself. Another important part of this process is setting boundaries. When you value yourself, you naturally become more selective about what you tolerate. You no longer accept disrespect just to be liked. You no longer overextend yourself just to gain approval. This doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you grounded. You understand that your time, energy, and attention are valuable, and you treat them accordingly. As this mindset strengthens, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. You become less reactive. Criticism doesn't shake you as easily, and praise doesn't inflate you. You remain balanced. This emotional stability is what makes self-worth-based confidence so resilient. It is not dependent on highs and lows, because it is anchored internally. In contrast, validation-based confidence is always unstable. It creates a cycle of dependency, where you constantly seek reassurance to feel okay. And the more you depend on it, the more power you give away. You become controlled by reactions, constantly adjusting and second-guessing yourself. This is exhausting, and it keeps you from fully stepping into your potential. Breaking free from this cycle starts with a simple but powerful realization. You do not need permission to value yourself. Your worth is not something others grant you, it is something you recognize within yourself. And once you truly understand this, your relationship with confidence begins to change. You start to act from a place of espe, or, ka, or, ikratkoi, este, where your actions are guided by clarity rather than fear. You trust yourself more, even when things are uncertain. You become more willing to take risks, not because you are guaranteed success, but because your sense of worth is no longer tied to the outcome. And this freedom allows you to grow in ways that validation never could, because in the end, confidence that depends on others will always be temporary, but confidence rooted in self-worth becomes a steady force that shapes how you think, how you act, and how you experience the world. Detachment often feels natural. It can even feel necessary. When you care about something, a person, an outcome, an opportunity, you instinctively want it to go a certain way. You begin to invest your thoughts, your emotions, and your expectations into it. At first it seems harmless, even motivating. But slowly, without realizing it, that attachment begins to create pressure. The pressure doesn't always show up loudly. Sometimes it's subtle. It's in the way you start overthinking simple situations. It's in the way your mood begins to depend on how things unfold. It's in the quiet anxiety that builds when you feel like something important is at stake. What once felt exciting now feels heavy, because you're no longer just experiencing the moment, you're trying to control the outcome. This is the hidden cost of attachment. The more tightly you hold on to a specific result, the more tension you create within yourself. Your mind starts racing ahead, imagining possibilities, predicting outcomes, and preparing for disappointment. Instead of being present, you become trapped in a loop of what if and what should be. That mental noise drains your energy and weakens your clarity. Attachment also changes how you behave. When you are overly attached, your actions are no longer natural. They become strategic, calculated, and sometimes even forced. You start saying things not because they feel true, but because you hope they will lead to a desired reaction. You begin to filter your personality, trying to avoid mistakes or rejection. In doing so, you move further away from your authentic self. This creates a paradox. The more you try to secure an outcome, the more you disrupt the very flow that could have led to it naturally. Your energy becomes tense instead of open, needy instead of grounded. People can sense this, even if they can't explain it. And often, it pushes away the very thing you are trying to hold on to. Detachment works in the opposite way. It removes the pressure by releasing the need to control what happens next. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You still show up, you still put in effort, and you still express yourself, but you are no longer tied to a specific result. You allow things to unfold without forcing them. When you are detached, your mind becomes quieter. You are no longer consumed by constant analysis or fear of losing something. Instead, you become present. You respond to situations as they are, rather than reacting to imagined outcomes. This clarity allows you to think better, act more naturally, and connect more genuinely. Detachment also restores your emotional balance. When you are not dependent on a particular result, your mood becomes more stable. You are not constantly riding the highs of hope and the lows of fear. Instead, you remain steady. This steadiness gives you a sense of control not over the external world, but over your internal state. There is also a deeper freedom that comes with detachment. It allows you to be yourself without the burden of expectation. You no longer feel the need to perform or prove anything. You can express your thoughts honestly, take risks without fear, and accept outcomes without losing your sense of self. This freedom is powerful because it shifts your focus from trying to control life to actually experiencing it. Many people misunderstand detachment as indifference, but they are not the same. Indifference means you don't care at all. Detachment means you care, but you are not controlled by that care. You are invested, but not dependent. This distinction is important because it allows you to stay engaged without becoming overwhelmed. When you practice detachment, you begin to trust the process more. You understand that not everything is within your control, and that's okay. You focus on what you can influence: your actions, your mindset, your effort, and you let go of the rest. This shift reduces stress and increases confidence, because you are no longer trying to manage things that were never yours to control. Another important aspect of detachment is how it changes your relationship with uncertainty. Instead of fearing the unknown, you become more comfortable with it. You realize that uncertainty is a natural part of life, not something to be eliminated. This acceptance allows you to move forward with less hesitation and more openness. As this mindset develops, you start to notice a change in your interactions and experiences. Conversations feel easier because you are not trying to force a specific impression. Decisions become clearer because they are based on your values rather than fear of outcomes. Even challenges feel different because you approach them with curiosity instead of anxiety. Detachment also makes you more resilient. When things don't go as planned, you recover more quickly. You don't take setbacks as personal failures because your identity is not tied to a single outcome. This resilience allows you to keep moving forward without losing momentum or confidence. In contrast, attachment often leads to emotional exhaustion. The constant need for things to go a certain way creates tension that builds over time. It can leave you feeling drained, frustrated, and stuck. Detachment breaks this cycle by removing the source of that tension. It creates space, mental, emotional, and even physical, for growth and clarity. Ultimately, the shift from attachment to detachment is not about losing passion or ambition. It is about changing how you relate to them. You still pursue what matters to you, but you do so with a lighter grip. You allow room for flexibility, for surprises, and for outcomes that may be different from what you expected. And in that space, something important happens. One of the most exhausting habits people develop is trying to control how others respond to them. It often starts subtly. You say something and immediately begin to analyze the other person's reaction. Did they like it? Did it sound right? Should you have said it differently? Over time, this pattern becomes automatic. You begin adjusting your tone, your words, even your personality, all in an effort to influence how others perceive you. At first, it may seem like a form of awareness or social intelligence, but in reality, it creates a constant state of tension. Because no matter how much you try, you can never fully control another person's thoughts, feelings, or reactions. People respond based on their own experiences, emotions, and perspectives, factors that are completely outside your control. The more you try to manage those reactions, the more drained and disconnected you become. This is where a powerful shift needs to happen. Instead of trying to control their reaction, You learn to control your energy. Your energy is the only thing that truly belongs to you in any interaction. It is the way you show up, the intention behind your words, the tone you carry, and the emotional state you bring into a moment. When you focus on your energy, you shift your attention from external outcomes to internal alignment. You stop asking, how are they reacting? And start asking, am I showing up as my best self? This shift immediately reduces pressure. You are no longer responsible for managing someone else's perception of you. Instead, your responsibility becomes much clearer and more manageable. Be present, be genuine, and be grounded. When you operate from this mindset, your actions become more natural. You are not overthinking every word or second-guessing every gesture. You are simply expressing yourself as you are. Trying to control reactions often leads to inauthentic behavior. You begin to filter your thoughts excessively, saying what you think others want to hear instead of what you truly feel. Over time, this creates a gap between your true self and the version of yourself you present to the world. That gap is where discomfort lives. It's why you can be surrounded by people and still feel unseen or misunderstood. When you focus on your energy, that gap begins to close. You become more aligned with yourself. Your words match your thoughts, and your actions reflect your values. This alignment creates a sense of venu teer, ye nne, ikrat koi pe o ka, o ikrat koi, a calm confidence that doesn't depend on how others respond. You are no longer performing, you are simply being. Another important aspect of controlling your energy is emotional regulation. In any interaction, there will be moments of uncertainty, disagreement, or even rejection. If your focus is on controlling the outcome, these moments can feel threatening. You may react impulsively, become defensive, or withdraw entirely. But when you are grounded in your own energy, you respond differently. You pause, you observe, you choose your reaction instead of being driven by it. This ability to respond rather than react is a form of strength. It shows that you are not controlled by external triggers. You maintain your composure, even when situations are unpredictable. This doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It means you understand them, manage them, and express them in a way that aligns with who you want to be. Focusing on your energy also improves the quality of your connections. People are naturally drawn to authenticity and presence. When you are not trying to manipulate their reaction, your interactions feel more real and less forced. There is a sense of ease in the conversation, a flow that doesn't require constant adjustment. This makes others feel more comfortable, which often leads to more genuine responses. Ironically, when you stop trying to control how people react, you often receive better reactions. Not because you are manipulating them more effectively, but because you are no longer creating tension. Your relaxed and grounded energy allows others to respond freely, without feeling pressure or expectation. It is also important to recognize that not every reaction will be positive, and that's okay. When your focus is on your energy, you don't take negative responses as personal failures. You understand that people's reactions are influenced by their own state of mind, their past experiences, and their individual preferences. This perspective helps you maintain your confidence, even in the face of criticism or rejection. Letting go of the need to control reactions requires trust. You have to trust that being yourself is enough. You have to trust that the right people will respond positively to your authentic energy, and that those who don't are simply not aligned with you. This trust allows you to move through interactions with more ease and less fear. As you practice this mindset, you begin to notice a shift in how you experience social situations. You feel lighter because you are no longer carrying the burden of managing outcomes. You feel more present because your attention is not divided between what is happening and what might happen. And you feel more confident because your sense of self is no longer dependent on external validation. Controlling your energy also means being intentional about what you bring into a space. Your attitude, your focus, and your emotional state all influence the dynamic of an interaction. When you choose to bring calmness, openness, and respect, you create an environment where meaningful connections can develop naturally. This doesn't mean every interaction will go perfectly. There will still be misunderstandings, awkward moments, and unexpected outcomes. But your relationship with those moments changes. You don't see them as threats to your self-worth. Instead, you see them as part of the process of engaging with others. Over time, this approach builds a deeper form of confidence, not the kind that depends on constant positive feedback, but the kind that comes from knowing you can handle yourself in any situation. You trust your ability to communicate, to adapt, and to remain grounded regardless of how others respond. And that trust becomes your foundation. It allows you to step into conversations, opportunities, and relationships without the weight of expectation. You are no longer trying to control the uncontrollable. Attraction is often misunderstood as something driven by appearance, status, or the ability to impress. While those factors may create initial interest, they rarely sustain it. What truly draws people in and keeps them engaged is something much deeper and less visible: emotional balance. It's the calm, steady presence of someone who is in control of their emotions, who doesn't swing between extremes, and who interacts with others from a place of stability rather than need. Neediness, on the other hand, has the opposite effect. It doesn't always appear obvious at first, but it reveals itself through behavior. It shows up in the constant need for reassurance, the urge to seek validation, and the tendency to overinvest emotionally too quickly. It's the subtle anxiety behind actions, the feeling that something must work out a certain way in order to feel okay. And people can sense that, even if it's never spoken directly. The reason emotional balance is more attractive than neediness is because it creates a sense of safety and ease. When someone is emotionally balanced, their reactions are predictable in a healthy way. They don't overreact to small issues, and they don't become distant or overwhelmed without reason. This consistency allows others to relax around them. There's no pressure to constantly manage their emotions or meet their expectations. The interaction feels natural, not demanding. Neediness creates pressure because it often comes with hidden expectations. When someone is needy, their attention and affection are not just expressions of interest, they are often requests for something in return. Approval, reassurance, or validation becomes the unspoken requirement. This turns interactions into transactions, where the other person feels responsible for maintaining the emotional state of someone else. Over time, this becomes exhausting. Emotional balance removes that burden. When you are grounded within yourself, your interactions are no longer driven by a need to receive something. You engage because you want to connect, not because you need to fill a void. This shift changes the entire dynamic. Your presence becomes lighter, more open, and more genuine. People don't feel like they are being pulled or pushed, they feel invited. Another reason emotional balance is attractive is that it reflects self-control. It shows that you are aware of your emotions, but not controlled by them. You can feel deeply without losing your sense of direction. You can handle uncertainty without becoming anxious or reactive. This kind of composure signals strength, not in a rigid or distant way, but in a calm and steady manner that others naturally respect. Neediness often comes from a lack of internal stability. When your sense of worth depends on external factors, you become more sensitive to changes in how others treat you. A delayed response, a shift in tone, or a moment of distance can feel significant. This leads to overthinking, misinterpretation, and sometimes emotional reactions that are disproportionate to the situation. These reactions can create tension and confusion, making it difficult for genuine connection to grow. In contrast, emotional balance allows you to interpret situations more clearly. You don't jump to conclusions or assume the worst. You give space for yourself and for others. This space is essential for healthy interaction. It allows people to be themselves without feeling scrutinized or pressured. It also gives you the clarity to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Emotional balance also enhances your sense of independence. You are not reliant on constant communication or affirmation to feel secure. You enjoy connection, but you are not dependent on it. This independence is attractive because it shows that you have a full life beyond any single interaction or relationship. You bring value into a connection rather than seeking it from the connection. This doesn't mean you become distant or unemotional. Emotional balance is not about suppressing feelings, it's about managing them. You still express interest, care, and affection, but you do so in a way that is measured and authentic. You don't overwhelm the other person with intensity, and you don't hold back out of fear. You find a middle ground where your emotions are present but not overpowering. Another important aspect of emotional balance is resilience. When things don't go as expected, you are able to handle it without losing your sense of self. You don't spiral into self-doubt or frustration. Instead, you process the experience, learn from it, and move forward. This ability to recover quickly from setbacks is deeply attractive because it shows maturity and strength. Neediness, by contrast, often leads to emotional volatility. High expectations can lead to disappointment, and disappointment can lead to frustration or withdrawal. This cycle creates instability, making it difficult for others to feel secure in the interaction. Over time, this instability can push people away, even if the initial connection was strong. When you develop emotional balance, your focus shifts inward. You become more aware of your own needs, triggers, and patterns. You learn to regulate your emotions rather than project them onto others. This self-awareness allows you to engage more consciously, creating healthier and more meaningful connections. People are naturally drawn to those who make them feel comfortable, understood, and free to be themselves. Emotional balance creates that environment. It allows interactions to unfold without unnecessary pressure or expectation. It fosters trust, because your behavior is consistent and your reactions are grounded. At the same time, emotional balance protects your own well-being. You are not constantly affected by external changes or the behavior of others. You maintain your sense of stability, regardless of the situation. This inner stability becomes your foundation, supporting you in both positive and challenging moments. As you continue to cultivate this balance, you begin to notice a shift not only in how others respond to you, but in how you experience your own emotions. You feel more in control, more present, and more at ease. Your interactions become less about seeking approval and more about genuine connection.